Do we go, ay, 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 ay? AI. It's interesting news in chip manufacturers. And we typically, we try not to get into, who's making hay or making money in the stock market, but interesting, NVIDIA was breaking news with their chipsets that, for the most part, they hit their numbers and surpassed their numbers only because, and the CEO said, because of generative AI and the abundant growth of generative AI and people going out there and saying, okay, what does this really do? And so, in a time where we think that there's going to be difficult times for chip manufacturers, because of, we've talked about it in the past, Asif, where it's difficult to get the bare minimum, the rare earth minerals,
elements
or minerals or elements that are all over the world, but they're only in high demand, but only in certain places. And so, when you have someone that's breaking news and it's because of AI, well, that's right down our alley. So what do you think, or how do you see, there's, and we can get into different areas, different discussions back and forth, but I mean, when it comes to the manufacturing and the problems that we've seen because of COVID and because of, also state nations being at odds or wars, and it's difficult to get these, when it comes to the chips that to manufacture or to develop, solutions like AI. But it seems like the market's not even hurt, with AI, with companies like NVIDIA, they're stepping up, and it's an American company. So, I mean, what do you think? How do you think the growth, or do you think the decline of chip manufacturers, where do you think we're at now?
So I'll start off with the semiconductor chips, right? And
yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look who we have here. We have guest of the hour.
Welcome.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey there. Good morning, you guys.
Good what?
Yeah.
What state are you in? Australia?
Must be.
I am the great country of Texas. So.
Oh, nice.
I heard you say good morning. That's when I was like, wait, where are you?
Hey, there's that saying, it's always 5 p.m. somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah, right?
So I just reframed it, flipped it around where...
Yeah, it's got to be 5 a.m. somewhere. Exactly, yeah. I'm with you.
What's up, man? How you been?
Good. Just came back from some appointments, and it's great to be with you guys. This is in a way, I'm kind of like fanboying because I've seen y'all's podcasts and streams on LinkedIn, and I'm like, man.
So long time listener, first time guest,
Yeah.
And
Nice.
Welcome to AyAyAyAi.
Welcome.
Yep.
We're recording live right now, so get started because we're about to dive deep into some topics with you, and want to hear your thoughts on those, because me and Lucky, we just started the conversation before we first started recording. We just talked about chicken and eggs, and we said, how does AI impact chicken and eggs? It doesn't, but let's talk about chicken and eggs, because there's shortage of eggs right now, and we want to talk about supply chain planning issues and so many topics. So before you jumped in, what I was discussing is about the Sherman, north of Dallas, where they're building the Texas TI's new manufacturing fab for chips, right? And the plan was to open the factory around 2040, but because of 2020, is like, we're going to open it by 2030. We're definitely going to have it up and running by 2024, because it takes a long time to create a fab for the manufacturing of chips. And that kind of tells you the urgency behind what's happening worldwide in geopolitics, right? Because as we were speaking about, the chip the fabs, being built in Texas, being built in Arizona, New York, Ohio, even in Utah, Idaho, is because we are blocking China from having access to chips that are being manufactured in Taiwan. So instead of Taiwan having just one um, weak location, which is surrounded by China and Taiwan, they're actually manufacturing chips here in Texas, right? So Samsung will have their chips factory in Austin. So
Wow.
why am I going down that list? Is because I want to capture what it does when you have supply chain planning, right? Because the supply chain planning is crucial to not only success of a startup or a business, but the national interest, right?
Agreed.
Because you want to take control over the technology that is up and coming, not because of a malicious purposes, but because of your self-interest, right? And this self-interest for US is that if you have Huawei manufacturing your 5G towers in any corner of the country, you just don't know what else Huawei can do using those 5G towers to listen into the data. And like TikTok, everybody's loving TikTok, but the Communist Party is sitting there, figuring out like, how do I do something with TikTok data of all these Americans that are using TikTok? And I'll give you a sharp contrast to that. Sharp contrast is in China, TikTok users of certain age are not allowed more than about 30 minutes a day.
Wow.
They're blocked from using TikTok, right? And
Mhm.
within those 30 minutes, the content that they see is far different than the TikTok content that we see in US for any age, right? What they see is, national themes, Communist Party messages, let's go to the moon and be an astronaut kind of a messages, right? Here we are looking at products, right? We're buying things. Cost of
So
between $10 to
I,
$30.
I actually have an unpopular opinion on that one, or
Okay,
what I would feel
Oh
like an
wow.
unpopular opinion,
let's do it.
because
Yeah,
on one side I get the, being coming from a law enforcement background,
right,
I get the security side, right?
right.
Now it feels like I have a unique view on this because I also have a healthcare background, being a
Hmm.
nurse, and more
Right, right.
specifically a pediatric RN. And the
Mhm.
way that I see that is yes, we can view it as, brainwashing, or that, hey, some people said China is really more controlling of whatever the youth is, right?
Mhm.
You're only controlling it for 30 minutes, where's the freedom in that?
Right.
And that, but to me it's kind of like in a spectrum, because to me, in a way, that's what would, or what previously would have been seen as just proper parenting, because there is such a thing as,
Too much.
in our healthcare, is problematic internet use, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And here in the Western culture, we also have this thing where, freedom, this, which is good. I'm not ratting on it, but it's more about a balance. Where
Right.
is that
Right.
moving line?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah, no, that's the balance of like managing your expectation discussion, right? Which
yeah,
we talk about a lot with AI, right? You have to manage your expectation because you can go off the rail talking about AI being dystopian, or you can go off the rail talking about utopian AI, right? AI that's going to solve
agreed.
all the problems, and you just have to sit there and watch it do it, right?
Yeah, that's not realistic. There is
the,
no
the
way we're
silver bullet,
gonna
the panacea of everything, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. To me, it's just innovation again, and
Yeah.
people coming in with all their, Hollywood ideas, not
Mhm.
realizing it's, hey, that's a Hollywood effect right there. It's not really real world, right?
Yeah. But at
Well,
some point, the
It has.
creators. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was
yeah,
gonna say there's partial truth in there, but the hype, the
Mhm.
mania, the folks have, it takes some time for them to process that, and really start thinking, oh wait, what's the limitations of this tool, right?
right, right.
So mhm.
My concern is, when the cybersecurity experts will strip a phone of all the component and how much the TikTok will try to utilize all these information on that other parts of the phone that is not TikTok. It's very concerning. I mean, Facebook does it. Don't get me wrong. Facebook does it. Even Apple does it. But when it's done by an Apple, they're held to a certain standard. Where TikTok, it's like the police, right? Can the police come and arrest you? No, they can't. So can you do whatever you want? Yes, you can. And as long as you can sell whatever that is harmful, you know, there's no police to
So
stop you. But then again, sometimes they do go out of control trying to ban TikTok, which I think if you don't give a replacement, if you don't have an alternative to say you cannot have TikTok, creates a side effect that you don't want. But that's just right. I
Mhm.
don't use TikTok, by the way. I don't even know how bad TikTok is. I just know it's really bad at snooping at people.
Yeah. And I don't use TikTok either, and I think we've had a little bit of a conversation towards this where you have a certain part of the population, certain age groups that are digital natives. They accept it. They just see it as, this is just the next widget that's fun, and whatever it does, they don't care. It doesn't
Right.
matter how it's working. It just works. How this phone works, I don't care. I don't care. How does Google know? How does it help me? Nobody cares. Only because they were born into the technology where us, we're a little bit apprehensive because we're more of, we're not born into this technology, and so we see this as more as possible issues with privacy. We see all the bad things that could be happening from this thing that gives us what we want. But at the end of the day, which generation is going to really care? We're going to go, our generations are getting to the point now where we want to pass the baton to the other generations. But do you feel confident in doing that? Because it doesn't seem like we've talked to a few people, but hey, it's just if it's kind of like Oz, the great power of Oz. As long as you know that it works and it's powerful, no one cares. What's behind the window? Mm-mm. It's just a scary little old man, gathering all your data. And so I think that over time we're going to see the same thing with AI. We see Chat GPT-3 or Chat GPT. We see all these great things, and in some cases, you get so comfortable with the responses that you start to believe that it's maybe sentient, or it's actually got a conscience, or it's alive, like Johnny Five, and you start to feel tied to things like that. I the responsibility has got to be set, and I think that there's people that need to be able to say, look, guys, these are great toy or tools, and yes, they're enabling us to be more productive, make better decisions, but how does this work? And is it right for us to have this way, or how did they come about putting together this data? Where did they get this data from? And those are the questions I think that we need to be able to ask in the future. Be more responsible over the AI, where as opposed to just turning ahead and say, hey, yeah, it works. What does it matter how it works? It just works. How does it matter that China can identify you at any point in any corner of China through cameras instantly? Well, that's great, but if I get kidnapped, but I'm not being kidnapped anytime soon. So why do they need to have so much data about me? It gets to the point where, okay, why? The whys almost, right?
mhm.
But being responsible, I think, is the next phase. What do you think about that? How do you see that?
the for me, the responsible AI. I know Amazon. It's been a while, a couple months since I've been updated on their policies
Yeah.
on that, and Microsoft's real big on the responsible AI part. Google, I'm not too sure. I'm not going to go deep on that one.
Yeah, Google does what they
The
want.
Yeah, going back to the caring part, because it's something that I really dive into on
Yeah.
people's behaviors, people's um, and emotions as well.
Hmm.
That's really my niche within cybersecurity is behavioral assessments. And the thing I notice, or whenever I'm enumerating a human,
Yeah.
people are not gonna like that one. But whenever I'm talking to people, open-ended questions, close-ended questions, I'm trying to find out where their knowledge begins and ends. Really,
Hmm.
what's the extent to their knowledge? because there is such a thing as an unknown, and it's really hard to care for something if you don't even know it exists, right?
Mhm.
So first step is to bring that into their awareness, and I'm also measuring their capacity to hold that information, and not only just hold that information, but also to understand it, to process what it really means to them, right? And why should they care? And
Yeah.
then at that point, so that's the intellectual and cognitive side. Now I'm assessing their emotional needs. We got the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It doesn't really matter on the AI part if they'll do anything if it's
Hmm.
giving them money and food, right?
Yeah.
So depending on where they're at on that emotional level, I mean that's another thing. I don't want to say that that's how I attack people, but that's really how it is. People's vulnerabilities and people's needs. If you know
Right.
where it is, you can kind of be like a carrot on a stick in front of them, right?
Hmm.
So, and the reason why I'm saying this is really, hey, to really break it down on how to get people to care, right? Or the winning the hearts and minds of people to where they'll actually care about stuff. It's very complex, and there's so many there's so many parts in there to actually get it right. um, and and unfortunately it's not a one size fits all,
Hmm.
especially if you're trying to apply it on scale with across society. And I haven't even talked about the hardest part where said tech companies are dopamine hacking our society, right? So I mean, it's already hard
Yeah.
enough to bring awareness. It's already hard enough to bring emotional agility and this emotional regulation to actually, hey, take that problematic internet use to where it's more productive, right?
Hmm.
And so we have to fight that, and really humans, we have subroutines too. Automaticity, we call them habits, and that's what tech companies are really good, finding those triggers, finding it what gives us the dopamine fix. And so I kind of took it off
Wow.
tangent on there, but
Oh,
No, no,
oh,
you're absolutely
but
right. You're
definitely
absolutely
on
right.
point.
Companies, the way they manipulate the fact that we get stuck, and that the dopamine that we're looking for, that fix we're looking for, they know how to produce it now in a handheld, and we're stuck with it. And that's
yes.
our society's hooked. That's definitely, I've never, I've thought about that, but I've never really applied that to how AI in the future. So you're spot on. I mean, it's just going to be a replay of how we're herded. Hate to say herded, but that's just the truth.
Right.
We're a creature of habit, and we like ease. So what's how easily can we be manipulated? Or and at the end of the day, but we ask for it. We take pride in having the next
Yeah.
coolest manipulating tool.
Well, I'm gonna park the AI machine learning car for a little bit,
Okay.
and go off on a tangent like I did last time about Facebook, where I said, Facebook has been emotionally manipulating people intentionally, knowingly, invested by the Congress and told by so many people to stop. And they said, we'll do better next time. So
Yeah.
apologize,
Yeah.
right? Move on and keep doing the same thing, keep making the same mistake over and over. So that's how I feel about Facebook. I find it to be a terrible place to be, where you are not emotionally trained, because your awareness of your self-regulating emotions and all that is not properly evaluated by you or somebody else for you, or not educated. So our school systems, and so on and so forth, where universities are teaching topics and curriculums, but we're not sitting there learning about ourselves. We're learning about everything else outside of our body, which is that, what emotions are you talking about? As long as you can pass a course on your network infrastructure, you're good, right? So again, I'm going off a tangent, but let me reel myself back in, right? Target, they did data analytics. They were sending out diaper coupons to kids that were like 14 or 15 years old, before their mom and dad even found out they were pregnant. Right? These girls were searching for baby products, and mom and dad didn't even know they were pregnant. And mom and dad found out because Target was targeting these kids for baby products, right? Sending them coupons. Target, not a social media company, just a retail company, using data analytics to do whatever a Target needs to do to sell products, right? So yeah, I get it. TikTok bad, Facebook bad, and everybody else could be on a bad boat too, right? But the data analytics has another part of it, which is good. Good as in we can list that good as well without even talking about AI/ML, because data analytics is what allows AI/ML to function, right? AI/ML to actually develop and deploy and maintain its capabilities, right? So data analytics is super important. The data analytics is what TikTok is utilizing. Data analytics is what Facebook is using, including machine learning and AI, to get to us, right? To get to us, and then once it gets to us, now we have to ask the questions about, do we want to be lied to, right? Because when you want to be lied, you can be lied to very easily. So yes, I get it. We are vulnerable towards all those big guys, but then again, we have to ask ourselves the questions like, what? How did this happen, right? Who was at fault? Who was doing the wrong here, right? Who's going to go to the jail for this, or who's going to get their wrist slapped, whatever the case is? Who wanted to be lied to, right? So in negotiation, I love the mention of you're trying to find that known unknown or unknown unknown, all sorts of variation of unknowns. It's black swan, right? You're looking for that specific detail of somebody's emotion, as in somebody is super angry when they're angry because of these kind of things comes to their peripherals, right? And somebody who wants to be really happy gets really happy and watch happy content all day long. Balance. You got to have balance. You cannot be angry all the time, and you cannot be happy all the time either. You got to have that balance in the middle. That's all up to you. If somebody's able to manipulate and target that because you're giving away your data, because you're showing that pattern of saying, show me angry content because I will stay in your platform for more than an hour, right? Show me that happy content. I will stay in your platform for an hour. Well, most of the time it's actually anger, not the happiness that actually works. But I'm defending both sides of the parties here, because data analytics is what we are using in order to manipulate, in order to provide services, in order to provide goods, in order to provide that ability to help ourselves to do better, right? If you need mental health after you've been in social media, well, social media is what got you the mental health problem. Now you have mental health problem solutions in social media. So I just want to put out that data analytics is not evil, like root of all evil, right? Data analytics is what was actually essential, and what we're experiencing is the negative part of it, right? What comes out on the other side, I believe it's AI machine learning that will score, that will provide these information. I think one of the things that you mentioned, Ralph, is that how do we understand what it is that we need to do for ourselves, right? So when we trust things because there's a commitment behind it, right? Somebody who has shown presence over and over and said, I'm reliable enough to be here for you throughout the day. TikTok, throughout the day. Facebook, throughout the day. There's no stopping it. There's no 30-minute caps on it, right? That's how you build trust, because trust has actual equation, and part of it is commitment. As in, we commit and you're persistent with that commitment. So with AI machine learning, one of the solutions I can see right off the bat to empower the user, which is that individual, not the corporation, to give that trust score off of a system like Apple. As in, you're using a machine, you're able to identify what sort of misinformation you're capturing through the social media, right? You're able to do a trust score to it. You're able to provide a score of like emotional intensity, right? I'll backtrack a little bit and say we see that today where you take a message, right? You copy and paste your writing and say, turn this message a little bit more friendly, right? Don't make it sound so angry. Those capabilities you have on your laptop, right? Copy and paste that message and turn it a little bit friendlier, or make it a little more angry, make it a little bit aggressive, whatever the case is. But you have that real-time scoring in your device as you're watching the content. So you read the content, but AI machine learning, because of its fast response time, it'll be able to score what it is that you're seeing in your device. Of course, you have to opt into that and say, yeah, show me the trust score of this information I'm seeing. Not necessarily it will be Facebook that's showing you the content or showing you those trust scores, but rather Apple, right? The device that you're using, it will have it built in, and it will be able to capture all sorts of scores. So that way, it can build that trust and say, whatever is negative, I'll stay away from that because the trust score is low on it, or the emotional score is low on that. Look, that's a fanboy in me talking about AI machine learning. I have to put that out there. But I think that's the good side of all the things that we're seeing negative.
It kind of reminds me of the PG rating
Yeah,
on movies,
yeah.
but it's a little bit overlap. Same
Right.
same but different, but still the same.
Hmm.
Right.
the Yeah, so there's this thing that I'm doing a little bit of research on. I'm trying to map psychology and neuroscience and a little bit of cybersecurity, just because it's
Hmm.
human
Social
hacking
engineering,
still.
right? Yeah.
I'm still not comfortable with that word. My skill set really fits that. I consider myself as a therapeutic engineer, but
Got it.
it's a
I'm
new
with you
buzzword.
on that.
I'm with you on
But
that. We need the other side of social engineering, therapeutic engineering. Yeah, good ones.
and you could probably relate with this one. I see since we were both prior law enforcement, and I've always, while I was still in, like, whenever I run into addicts, right? I'm sure just people. I don't want to say the people are addicts. People are in an addictive state, right, or addicted state, because me, by default, to me, there's no such thing as a bad person. It's just they have bad behaviors, right? And behaviors can be changed. Right? But anyways, in the past, I'm like, hey, it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice.
Right.
And earlier you mentioned, hey, it's really up to them, right? To It's a choice. But neuroscience, once you hit, it is a choice. It is a conscious choice. And again, a lot of planets have to align that where they have to. It has to be in their awareness. They have to
Right.
have the capacity to be able to process that. But even then, again, you got defense mechanisms and poor coping habits.
Right.
And at some point, it is a conscious choice. And then at some point, it's no longer a conscious choice. It's a subconscious choice.
Right.
And there are actual chemical changes where people know what it is that they need to do, right? Most people don't even know what they need to do. And then for the ones that know what they need to do, they just can't seem to do it. So, and that's where cognitive dissonance is. And it's sad. It took me a while to really, because I'm a bootstrap like type of guy, and it really took me a long time to just accept that, hey, you know what, some people do need that helping hand.
Yeah.
And a fortunate thing that I'm seeing with social media is it's not even addicts with cocaine or drugs or alcohol anymore. It's literally, like, I'm so curious if we just do a brain scan of ages 6 to 20 or to 30, and see how much social media is it's an addiction, and it's
Right.
out. Yeah, I'm just really curious on what percentage where I need to put it down, but they can't.
Yeah.
So
I,
I
I was talking to somebody earlier on the live webinar. But by the way, go ahead, please finish your thoughts.
the oh no, that was it. I was
Yeah.
just gonna add at the end that I kind of took it really dark and downer.
No,
for a bit
you're
there.
right.
That's
No,
how
you're
we.
right.
That's how. Look, if you don't scratch the surface,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to sleep. Right? I'm just gonna fall asleep here. Go to sleep. Like Lucky, you continue. Right? You gotta scratch the surface. You gotta make it dark, because that's where we find solution. Right? There's only one problem, millions and billions of solutions. That's the way I see it. And where you get to solution, you start scratching things. So earlier I was in a conversation. I do a live webinar on Wednesday, and one of the things that I said, like a calculator, you can throw it away, and data will go with the calculator. You buy a typewriter, throw the typewriter away. There's no data, right? It just goes away. Laptop, you can throw the laptop away, but because you're connected to the internet, you're having AI, machine learning, or some of the websites that you're interacting with, they will always have your data, because that data is sitting in a data center somewhere, and that data center will create a footprint for you for as long as they don't delete it, right, or they don't lose it somewhere, somehow data breach or whatever. Um, and this kind of worries are just not with AI machine learning. This is just metaverse conversation about, like, how if you put a VR goggle on, just off your body movement, it can identify who it is you are, right? Fingerprinting you. And those fingerprinting capabilities on VR is able to say, marketing to the max, right? Age 6, who cares? Sell them that pony that they want, and the shiny pony that's pink in color, all that, right? Just sell it to them. Because your ethics is different than mine. My ethics is to make that billions, right? So this is the kind of things that Facebook and all these other marketing companies will have in mind. Whereas in a Joe Schmo, right, who wants to be a parent, now they have that difficulty of, like, oh my goodness, how does it impact my child? Because I want my child to grow up safely and have a little bit of I guess less trust issues in society. We want to be able to have a society that's integrated, that people are able to, interact with each other without having all those fears, right? That's the utopian side of us that wants to have that, right? The parent's ability to raise a child without having too much of a concern. But again, here's my thing. They have to adapt, right? They have to adapt to that. How much does social media impact? I mean, look, just the screen alone is causing your brain to actually wire differently. And last generation wired differently because they watched more TV than laptop. This generation probably will wire differently because they're watching a smaller screen than a laptop, right? Because they probably don't use laptop that much. I do. I'd rather be on a laptop than on a phone. I could get more work done if I was on my phone all day long, right? So I want to talk about the wiring of your neuron. The neuron that wires together stays together, right? If you started from that frame of mind, what you will see is that, yes, our brain is far more different than what it was 400 years ago. Because, by the way, I just want to throw this joke in there. They asked, like, what was the outcome of a French Revolution? The answer is, we are still waiting to see what happens, right? So 400 years ago, our ancestors are in a different state. Their neurons actually wired differently than ours. And what we will do in the future, and here's my concern, I think Lucky will agree with that, is that your survival instinct is not as aggressive as it used to be, right? That your need for survival, right? So when you live between comfort and your safety, right? If you have good safety, you live comfortably. But if you're not feeling comfortable, you start feeling unsafe. Whatever the case is, right? Somewhere comfortable and safety is where you live in a spectrum, and what we wire ourselves differently. That's my only concern, is actually that we are giving up too much safety, giving up to too much comfort, rather than to say, how do I find that survival instinct? So that way, if the technology was to get wiped out, which internet doesn't have a switch button, but if the internet was to get cut off, I will be able to survive without searching in Google or asking ChatGPT for assistance, right? So I think that's the concern in me, that the parents, like that, we talked about digital natives earlier. My kids are not digital natives. They're literally digital. They were born into the iPad. I want them to have that good survival instinct, right? That ability to say, there's a tiger on the back of that bush. I should know there's a tiger on the back of the bush. Instead of petting it, I should run away from it, right? So the little survival instinct is what I'm worried about. But yeah, that's a little tangent there too.
Well, if you just kind of just take a sample, or what type, if you look at, or a litmus test, let's just look at, say, okay, the way we were 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago before coffee, and what coffee just did to, how coffee changed the way we are. And then you go fast forward. Now you look at the kids nowadays. Now it's just a small sample, but I've noticed that, and I'm not taking it away from the new generation, but they've been so stuck with their efforts to communicate through a small device now that they don't know how to communicate. It's difficult then for them to create. If you don't know how to communicate, how do you identify or create an identity if you can't communicate? Because first of all, you got to know who you are, and then trust who you are to be able to communicate with other people, and then trust that person. So if you have problems identifying, I think that's a huge problem nowadays. I won't get into other things, but the fact of the matter is they just don't know how to look you in the eyes and carry on just a simple conversation, because it just seems like they're so drawn to the dopamines. Some kids can't look up and get off their phone at an intimate or a moment of truth because they want to be tied to their phones, and that I think that's a huge thing, that just people lose that touch. So what's the next physical thing? Instead of gaining things forward, I think that we're going to be subtracting. The more technology we have, I've noticed the more we subtract. And it started with myself. I'll be honest with you. I remember as a kid, I could have been more. I love music. I love music. I love the violin. I love to play the guitar. I played with an orchestra when I was like 4 or 6. I think I was 6 years old. But because I hate Commodore 64 and then technology, I put down my instruments and used technology as my instrument. And fast forward, I've gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and I have a job because of it. But who knows what I could have produced as an artist? And so I think we're losing touch with our kids. They're losing touch in the sense that all the kids are pretty much like robots now, I see. And that not they're able to just zone out on these devices. And that goes back to your dopamine. It just you're just tied to these devices, and you don't know that you are. And it continues, and we will be that way. And again, being negative, it's not a negative thing to put out and shine light on the truth. And just we have to find people that break the mold, and that's just it. People need to be able to break out of the mold and say, okay, all right, put the device down for a couple of hours a day, or for an entire afternoon. Phones go in a box as you come in the house. Things like that would change people, I think.
I agree.
you know
You're sounding like a therapist there, Lucky.
no, I'm far from it. Just old man.
Problem-based, solution-based therapy is what Lucky just did.
Yeah.
You provided a solution. You put that phone in the box, and you don't take it out until you have to leave the home. I think that will do wonder, because that ability to find patterns, right, and find more of them, have that ability to have a spectrum of patterns inside of your neurons. Like I said, neuron that fires together wires together. So when you have neurons that are firing to find more patterns, and you're a pattern-seeking person, that's what you want to raise a child as a pattern-seeking person. You want to be able to give them more patterns, options of more patterns that they can find, which is to kick the soccer ball 90 minutes a day, and have outside activity in the sun to say, like, it's good for you, but also bad for you. So you have that good balance of pattern recognition. And look, AI machine learning, don't get me wrong, we're an AI machine learning podcast. We have to talk about patterns continuously. And we think of this really good thing when it comes to machine learning, that this machine is able to create or identify and label more patterns than other machine learning. Great. So what about a child? A child can identify more patterns than another child. That child is just finding more patterns than the other child, and we call it a smart or not so smart, right? So just putting that out there, because I think what Lucky is saying, it hits home, because I'm raising 2 kids myself. When it comes to AI machine learning, I'm all in for it. So whatever goes good for machine learning has to go good for the kids. As in, build machine learning that's able to find patterns, very good at finding patterns and making decisions off of that. Kids should be the same way. Kids should be able to find patterns. I know for a fact, now that I'm a certain age, I'm like, I wasn't that bright when I was young, right? Because I wasn't given that opportunity to find those other patterns that other people are good at, right?
Yeah.
So how do I find that solution-based therapy here, right? So we're having a therapy session, by the way. uh, when you have a school system that grades you based on your performance, that's what I mean by patterns. As in, your patterns are restrictive patterns. The pattern has to be formed in itself in a way that is, it doesn't give you the opportunity to say, like, I like that pattern too. I want some of that. As in, the other kid has another pattern, right? So when you're in a classroom and you're building this pattern and you're expecting the kids to go to university and learn different patterns. So this is what actually happens in the US and many other countries, where education system, K1 to K12, they teach certain patterns and they expect to go to the university and find more patterns, right? Which is education. But if you're developing more patterns at K1, and by the time you're in K12, you're like as educated as a university student, what's the problem with that? I don't think anybody will say, "Oh my God, we need smarter high school kids." Nobody's gonna have problem. Actually, some people will have problem with smart high school kids. But look at a example of that will be Ad Astra, right? Which is ASTRA. You have students that are like of say 7 or 8 years old. They're not learning English. What they're learning is project management, how to shoot a rocket up into space, and what sort of velocity they have to be aware of, and how would Timmy over there will be able to work on that velocity, while Jimmy over there will look into the hardware issues, and Tina back there will say, "Well, we don't even have a ground to launch out from, so where are we launching from?" Right? See that the four angles of coming to a solution for a problem that my age kid, like when I was 6 or 7, I don't know. Maybe I was worried about Hot Wheels more than I was worried about launching a spacecraft, right? but the reason they take that approach is that to form those neurons, the neuron that fires together wires together, those patterns that they're building is far more different than what I will ever be able to do, because I'm not going to go back in childhood and rebuild my neurons. It's too late, right? But for the future generation, I think the solution is just that. Even if you want to get rid of AI machine learning, too late. You want to get rid of internet, too late. You want to get rid of data analytics, too late. What we can do is transform the education system that we already have in place, and we know how. There's a new word, dinosauric is like, it's really old as hell. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really old. It's built for people that used to work in the factories hundreds of years ago, right? Go to the school system, learn your ABCD, and then go work in the factory shop floor, right? Put the cars together and sell them in a car dealership. Those are the kind of educations we're still receiving today, even though we need a different types of education system. And let me stop there and hear Ralph's thought, because I think he's pondering about how to respond to that.
I really like how you abstracted it into patterns, because that's really how humans process data. And depending on the pattern, it can be a tree, it can be a car, it can be anything. It's
Even a
just a
car.
pattern.
Car got in a car wreck. It got into the tree.
Yep. And then an action, an event, that's still data that we're processing through our five senses, and it's still a pattern. And I kind of want to touch back on the bad patterns, or what we're going to label as bad patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, hey Timmy, I want you to study 30 minutes learning Azure or Synapse or something, or Microsoft Learn or Azure, or 30 minutes on the phone just YouTubing random stuff, which is in itself, it might not be bad depending on the parent's goal. Maybe it's a reward for him for studying 2 hours, right? So that 30 minutes is not necessarily bad. But going back to the problematic, so it becomes problematic or maladaptive when it's starting to hurt the kid's grades or other metrics. If the kid's having personality issues, anger issues, because he doesn't want to get off. So it's just bad patterns, and then there's good patterns that I don't know why I brought it. brought it. I think I lost my train of thought on that one, but I really like how you form those patterns. I will kind of counter what you said earlier when you said, it's too late for us to learn, right? Yeah. So I agree with you to a degree. I do have to counter that, because I agree with it, because we have so much responsibilities in life as we get older versus the young ones, right? So we don't have as much focus and time as we would like. But if we were able to separate that and give room, we have to scrap that limiting belief in the first place, and then we are able to. But again, I mean, we have so much constraints as an adult versus the young ones.
Lucky is in the point of his life where he's ready to babysit my kids, so I can have those dead buried in my forehead.
I do love kids, man. I've had my share of kids, and they're older, And a lot of people say, it's always going to be better when you can just give them away or keep them for a little bit, like a grandfather, and just keep them for a little bit and then send them off. I'm an educator. I love being around. I think one of those things that I enjoy watching people learn, and it hurts me whenever it's just I feel that there's lost opportunities. And so I just see, and not again being going down a pessimistic way or side, but I just believe that there's better ways of doing things. And if we can teach kids to create things
Right.
as opposed to be a viewer, or they're just, basically a third person just always viewing and just
Consumer.
exactly, and then be the creator. Create not creator on like social media, but create things in life. Make things, break things. Have failure. People are so scared to fail nowadays. And going into the future, if we're going to have any technology that's worth its weight in salt, we're going to have to fail a lot, and we're going to have to make a lot of mistakes. And we can't leave it up to big companies to make all the mistakes and figure out how we're going to how it's going to mold up and how AI is going to be or what it's going to be for us. Because at the end, I see AI different. Like my perspective of AI, like some people say that a phone is not a type of AI, and we've had the discussions, debates, and I think that anything that helps you make smarter decisions augments you. Now, it's not artificial intelligence, but it's analytical information that help you become a better human, make a better decision, and that's what AI does for us at the end. I think that even if we see if we fast forward to Terminator, at the end, Terminator didn't do anything for us except for protect Sarah Connor, because Sarah Connor had to have a son that was going to lead the world to make better decisions. So AI is not going to be something that guides us and controls us. It's going to be something that we use as a tool. And so if we keep that perspective, then hey, it's no dystopian future. It's just we got better tools. But if we become hinged on it and we don't control it, then it becomes Frankenstein. And so I want to be able to guide people, and I think there's discussions, at the school, even more. The more we have these discussions, say, okay, what is AI? Other people would ask the same thing. So I think that's the benefit from this and from what we're trying to get across. But again, you bring something special that I haven't thought about at all, is the psychology about it, and you're talking about exactly what I have inside, what I have in my gut. Trust your gut, they always say. And you bring up some really good points when it comes to the psychology of AI and technology. And so that's an interesting perspective.
So there's a lot of word soups, right? Which I agree with Lucky, right? When I identify an AI, if a system is able to identify, label, and help me decide or make a decision for me, right? I think the key component here would be that the system is able to identify, then label, and make a decision for me. Great, right? Like that's what I think is what an AI is. So phone in itself, it identifies who's calling. I'm just keeping it lame. And then it labels who's calling, right? And if it decides that it's not going to pick up the phone, that's the freaking AI right there, right? Like scammers, spammers, these guys that are trying to sell me car warranties for cars that I don't own anymore, right? You made a decision for me, and you said like, nope, not today, spammer, right? So you've identified and you labeled and you made a decision for me. And the third component, decision, is very important, because if you start making wrong decisions, my life becomes miserable, right? Now you're missing a phone call from the CEO of a company that wants to pay me $1 billion for 2 days of work or something crazy like that. I don't want to miss those calls. So my point is that you identify and you label it correctly. You label very well, or you need lots of training for that labeling. And then through that labeling, the output is your capability of making decisions. And that's human brain 101. You use 5 senses to identify and you label, but you mislabel a lot. But because of your labeling capabilities, you end up making the very best decisions or very average decisions or very low grade decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, decision makers is the one that we decide how we rate that. So again, AI, machine learning, human brains and AI machine learning, they have lots of similarities, right? What's out of the bag is not going back into the bag. Our ability to know that we can do these things with the internet, data analytics, by reducing people's privacy to minimum, right? Like privacy that we have today is far different than what privacy used to be, right? Not because people are going around snooping all day long, but the devices and hardware that's available, and those hardware and devices being available everywhere is what's reducing the privacy, right? So we have something that's out of the bag, and we're not gonna be able to put it back in, right? But what we can do is actually create the alternative. Like I think at the beginning of the conversation, I said, well, if you're going to take TikTok away, you have to provide an alternative, and most likely it's not Facebook. Most likely it's not going to be even Meta. Most likely it's not going to be a VR goggle either, right? It's going to be able to say something along the line of, it augments you to do more and better, right? TikTok is addictive, but it gives you more to do, right? As in your brain is kind of waiting for that pattern to fall into and say like, I'm in a pattern of being addicted to TikTok, but TikTok also led me into being a pattern of being an entrepreneur, uh, uh, engaging on these certain topics, right? Or going after the school courses that I really want to spend my time on, right? If I have to go back in school, I'll talk about decision science all day long. That's what I'll do my whole school on. But I'm not so mad at myself for going to school for different purposes. But I wish I had TikTok to show me decision science when I was a certain age looking for school programs, right? Not complaining again, but at the same time, TikTok probably is helping a lot of kids right now to say like, why waste 4, 6, 10 years of my life chasing after a program that I'm not going to be interested in? Because what I'm interested in, TikTok has already shown it to me multiple times, and I'm actually able to confirm what it is that I like, what it is that I don't like, right? I'm able to identify my passion for things, and to say, I'm going to make a decisions off of it because I labeled it as the correct decision, right? TikTok can help you. TikTok can, take you down as well. All of it is to say nothing can be taken away. It can be only replaced with something better, something more effective, right? So I don't see anybody replacing TikTok, even though there's bans that are happening. And I'm in support of the bans. I think the data analytics that China will be able to utilize against all the other nations. I'm not just talking about USA. I'm talking about Chinese the dissidents, as in the bordering countries. I'm talking about multi-level supply chain planning disruption, supply chain management manipulations. It puts a lot of people at disadvantage, and the data analytics from TikTok alone is not going to allow China to do that. But it'll be a big tool for them to manipulate through data analytics by providing false or misinformation, whatever the case is. So I want to leave it right there because what I want to say is that you cannot take what's out of the bag, put it back in the bag. You have to find a replacement alternative and do a better job with it. And I think AI machine learning probably will have some of the solutions that we need, but it's yet to be seen. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up some good points, and I'd like to get off in another tangent because I like to talk about deep fake and TikTok, and I don't want to because it seems like we're riding a fine line of okay, there's not politics, but you start the technology and how depending on your social environment, or where you're from, technology or what AI is going to be viewed a little different. So I don't want to get into that. But you guys bring up some good points. At the end, deep fake, I think, is something scary, and it's gotten even scarier in the news. I don't know if you've seen the latest deep fakes, what they've shown. They've gotten more impressive, and so fake news drives social media, and I don't want to get into what's fake and what's not, and but at the end of the day, I get emotional if I see dogs, a dog video. So it's easy to take and just pull on people's strings, with deep fake. And it's just, and now it's part of our everyday living. I got Leonardo DiCaprio sounding like Oprah Winfrey, and that was wrong.
That's what that was the string that they pulled.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? But yeah, that social media and deep fakes, and that's all AI. Another control mechanism that we have to make sure, hey, this stuff is not real. But if it's real for just a half a second to build that person up, their day is shot. you know, you know what I mean? So it's just different methods. But again, don't want to go off on tangents. It's been great conversation. I think we need to have more. I think we need to have you on again, and maybe pick a subject and stay on it. But definitely need to have you on again.
This is a pilot episode, right?
Yeah, this is
For
pilot.
I can eat up dozens of hours on deep fake and deception and self deception because
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And Asif knows this where just because I can have the truth in front of someone in a way that how I present it, and they'll
Mhm.
twist the reality. So I mean, to me, the deep fake, I'm not against it. It's the only one part that does scare me is how easily it is accessible,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So because part of me, like with the hacking community, I feel like there's mass proliferation of these tools.
Yeah.
It just it's still a debate. People can just justify, oh, this and that, this and that. But me coming from a law enforcement background, I'm like, no, this is proliferation. But that's just one way. That's just my perspective, right? A way, not the way.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Instagram filtering, that to me is a deep fake, right?
Mhm.
Your ability to portray yourself something that you're not is deep fake, the self-deception part you mentioned. And if you look at the spectrum on the other side, somehow the credit card company can be able to verify who am I, who it is that they're talking to, and I'm able to take somebody's driver license information and turn that driver license to me, right? I think I posted you on the or tagged you on the NBA video where the guy is playing basketball. He was in the audience. All of a sudden, he was
Yep.
playing basketball in CGIs or whatever, right?
That was awesome.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of advantages that criminals will have. So when you do ethical hacking, I mean, look at the list of tools. They don't talk about going on a list of tools in certain darkweb.com. That's literally available for downloading in Google. This is ethical hackers. The tools that the ethical hackers will use, maybe the same tool that unethical hackers will use, right? So we're coming up on the hour, but I just gotta, point this out. Like, this is privacy. This is the concern with safety, right? This is the topic about security, right? So security, some people think like, oh, it's just a data security. Well, data security should start with psychology of social engineering, right? So when you talk about ethical hacking,
Yep.
yeah, data is very secured in most places. It's the people in the keyboard. They're the one that's psychology manipulated and left to dark because they don't know how they got to the point where they were hacking into things and stealing stuff, right? And then they get caught. They're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about all that. So I think there's a huge spectrum in it, right? When we start discussing these topics, we have to figure out like, okay, how do we cover that part of the spectrum, right? Because the one side of the spectrum is Chat GPT. You can write all day long, right? Like you're a freaking professional. But the other side, how do you tackle using what's happening on that dark side of things? As in, somebody's trying to come up with bad plans, and you capture them using NLP technology, and you try to prevent that before it goes too far, right? Again, it's privacy violation issues, but at the same time, I just think of these stuff and trying to figure out what's an AI ML solution to that. And maybe I'll find one day, and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
let's say like Lucky, are you feeling down at this point, or still okay with AyAyAyAi?
yeah, I'm more ay. Now I'm like, oh man, ay.
Not today.
Yeah, I started strong and I'm finishing. Oh well, hold on. What's the end of the day?
Oh, hold
So,
on. There's
yeah,
more
more
work.
coffee next time.
More coffee.
More coffee.
How about you, Ralph? How are you feeling?
The oh, I can go dark. People say Dark Knight Diaries is dark. I'm like, hold my beer, right?
Yeah,
Oh my
But
beer.
I like how you ended it with hey, uh, you mentioned that yeah, here's the problems. Let me find a solution.
Right.
And I feel like, it's just my opinion here, my 2 cents, that the cybersecurity. So sometimes we go into that deep rabbit hole where everything is broken. We call wolf, and in reality, the wolf is there. There's wolves everywhere. But at the end of the day, we got to take care of our mental health, and it's easy to just fall into that hole. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, business and society, AI, ML, it's all about solving the problem, right? We can't lose that positive side, because anyways, that's what innovation is. You find a problem, you solve it. Well, guess what? That solution comes with other problems anyways. So you learn how to accept that, right? It's either you're in a problem, you just solve the problem, or guess what? If you don't feel like you have a problem, it's next door. It's about to knock on your door and hit you in the
Great,
face. So
great
Like,
way to wrap it all up, right? If you solve a
yeah,
problem, you're always going to have another problem. So whatever the solution is, look for the next problem to come.
yeah.
Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for joining us. This is
Yeah, it's been great.
We'll see you guys
Hey,
next time.
thanks for having me.
All right,
Y'all
Ralph.
have a good one.
Thanks, Lucky.